Jasmine here, coming at you with another Biggest Losers of the Bible, and honestly spend years looking at Old Testament stories of failures and times when life just didn't work out the way it was supposed to. The people in the Old Testament had a lot of challenges, had a lot of struggles, and we are all human, and so we all experience very real elements of our faith in a day-to-day context. So moving forward, we're just going to look at some of the New Testament stories, because I don't want us to get disillusioned that the Old Testament people who didn't have access to Jesus were the only ones who faced troubles in their life, because that's absolutely not true. And some people are going to be like, wait a second, what about Hannah? What about Samuel? What about Saul? What about David? What about Solomon? And all the other kings that came after that? Honestly, there are so many wonderful resources that address all of the challenges and trials of those people specifically, that there's no need for me to attempt to condense or rehash the works that they've already put together. But what I will do is put together a fantastic playlist for us to review all of those stories. If you are interested, those will be available for you on the HPZN blog. But don't forget about HPZN Music, because I will be uploading some new mixes, new playlists for you guys to enjoy here in the next few days. That said, let's go ahead and get right into it.
In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. Okay? So you've got Genesis 1:1 that says God created the heavens and the earth. In Genesis 1:2 says, and the earth was without form and void.
Just look at Genesis and you see that the earth was covered with water.
2 Peter 3:5, for this they are willingly ignorant of, the world that then was, being overflowed with water, perished. So what Peter's saying here is that Noah's flood was the second time that the earth was flooded with water. What does this matter?
Right.
Well, it matters a lot, because the earth is not 6,000 years old.
God's human history is 6,000 years old. We can agree on that. Mankind is 6,000 years old. The earth is not.
Let's take a look at today's Biggest Losers of the Bible.
In the beginning, God in all his power and creativity reached down to craft a world that reflects his glory. By his word, he spoke the planets into existence. But with his hands and his breath, he sculpted men and women unlike anything else. The scriptures tell us that human beings were God's masterwork, and he wrote his signature, set his imprint on the human soul. Humans are created in the imago Dei, the image of God. We have the ability to create, worship, communicate, reason, and relate. We are capable of love and responsible for our actions.
You won't surely die. For God knows if you eat this fruit, you will be like him, knowing the good and the evil. What is the enemy saying to Eve? You're not enough. You're not good enough. You're not pretty enough. You're not smart enough. But here's the thing. It is our blemishes that validate our authenticity. If we view the potter as not enough, surely we'll view his handiwork as not good enough. If we don't understand that God has to be more than enough, we'll live life forever eating forbidden fruit extended to us by snakes.
Now it so happened that on a given day, Job's servants were working in the fields when an army attacked. The Sabaeans were ruthless, killing Job's servants and making off with the herds.
Master Job! Master Job!
At nearly the same time, a hailstone of fire fell to earth, consuming Job's herd of sheep and the servants who tended them.
The heavens are raining fire! Run for your lives! Master Job, there was nothing we could do. Fire fell from the heavens, killing all your sheep and your servants who were tending them. And I alone have escaped to share this terrible news.
And yet a third tragedy struck Job in that very hour. The Chaldean army surrounded Job's servants, killing them and making away with his camels.
The camels, they're all gone. Stolen by the Chaldeans, who killed your servants. All except me, who escaped to tell you what has happened.
With all his livestock dead or stolen, and his servants killed, Job was about to receive the worst news yet.
God, help us! Master, oh Master, I cannot bear to tell you the news. A great wind came upon the home of your eldest while he was feasting with his brothers and sisters. It destroyed the house and all your children. All of them have been killed. I alone have escaped to tell you. No!
Hearing the tragic news, Job tore his robe and ran into his house. With his knife, he shaved all of his hair, and falling to the ground, he worshipped God.
Naked I came from my mother's womb, and naked I shall depart this earth. The Lord God has given to me, and now he has taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord.
In all the loss Job endured, he did not sin by blaming God.
Yeah, we typically think of the flood story as about God being angry, but it actually begins with God's sadness and grief about the state of his world. And so out of his passion to preserve the goodness of his world, he washes it clean with the flood.
He chooses Noah and his whole family.
Well, why an ark? I mean, that's like flood territory. You wouldn't do that. Would you do that?
Let's just say that whatever I do because I love you.
Well, then you have to understand that this whole building an ark thing is really not part of my plans here. I need to settle into my house. I need to make a good impression at work.
Bonus point. Vision always makes you vulnerable. You felt like I was standing up there bucket naked. Y'all know that bucket naked. Just exposed. And let me help you. That's what true vision makes you feel like. Do you know how Noah must have felt to just tell his wife, I'm about to spend the next couple decades. Now, I know what I said about vacation next summer, but I got a vision from God. And so I'm going to be spending, honestly, I need our sons and their wives, matter of fact, everybody, y'all birthed. I need everybody to help me. Because somebody going to have to go rile up the animals. And then somebody going to have to help me with this wood. And somebody's, like, do you imagine how vulnerable it must have been?
So Noah and his family are going to reboot all of humanity. I mean, he must be a pretty great guy.
That Noah gets off the boat and he plants a vineyard and he gets totally plastered. And then something sketchy happens in his tent.
Standing up there bucket naked.
Father Abraham. Abraham also had many challenges and didn't really think he was gonna get many sons.
One day, Terah took his son Abram, his daughter-in-law Sarai, his son Abram's wife, and his grandson Lot, his son Haran's child, and moved away from Ur of the Chaldeans.
Anyway, you know the rest of this part of the story.
Genesis Rabbah makes it clear that a Messiah king was prophesied to one day come from Lot's line, so Lot's daughters get their old man blind drunk and sleep with him in order to continue his line. Lot's daughters give birth to two boys, who both go on to found dynasties of their own, known as the Moabites and the Ammonites.
Terah was headed for the land of Canaan, but they stopped at Haran and settled there. And then he moved on to Gerar. While living there as a foreigner, Abraham introduced his wife Sarah by saying,
"She is my sister."
So King Abimelech of Gerar sent for Sarah, and had her brought to him at his palace. But that night, God came to Abimelech in a dream and told him,
"You are a dead man, for that woman you have taken is already married."
Then Abimelech called for Abraham.
"What crime have I committed that deserves treatment like this, making me and my kingdom guilty of this great sin?"
Abraham replied,
"I thought, this is a godless place. They'll want my wife and will kill me to get her. And she really is my sister, for we both have the same father but different mothers."
He returned his wife, Sarah, to him. But Sarai was unable to become pregnant and had no children.
Imagine how vulnerable it must have been for Abraham to walk back to Sarah, because she was old. She was dusty. Baby, hold on. Let me move your wheelchair. Okay, let me tell you what God told me. He gave me a vision, and he said, look up into the stars and number them if you can. That's how many descendants I'm going to give you. So I just came to tell you, I'm going to put it down, and you're going to get pregnant.
She gave birth to a son for Abraham in his old age. This happened at just the time God had said it would, and Abraham named their son Isaac. Abraham was 100 years old when Isaac was born.
Go ahead and take a look at today's biggest losers of the Bible.
The Bible doesn't talk much about Jacob and Esau as kids, but we do know and their dad Isaac would give Esau a blessing, which means Isaac would ask God to take care of his oldest son Esau in an extra special way. Rebekah helped Jacob trick his dad Isaac. Jacob got Esau's blessing. Esau was furious. Jacob ran away.
He came up on the scene, he saw Rachel, and then he saw Leah. And since he was so infatuated on Rachel for the 7 years, that's who he fixed his energy on, his direction, all his love and honor, that he actually really overlooked a good woman for somebody who was a thief, for somebody who was selfish, and for somebody who was willing to trade, him with his sister for some food.
And God showed that but for his intervention, Jacob would have been killed by Laban and by Esau. And if not that he would have drifted away into Canaanite culture, as we saw happening at Shechem, until God intervened.
Genesis 38 is not just a messed up story, it's also an unexpected cutaway from the main story. You see, it happens in the middle of the well-known story of
Joseph, son of Jacob, the dreamer.
Abram has a son named Isaac. Isaac has a son named Jacob. Jacob has 12 sons who become the 12 patriarchs, or the heads of the 12 tribes of Israel. Joseph is one of those. They are about to destroy the dreams. And in fact, they are fulfilling the dream.
Joe was his dad's favorite. His brother sold him. Potiphar put Joe in charge. Joe was sent to jail. The guard put Joe in charge. Pharaoh had a bad dream. Joe told him what it meant. Pharaoh put Joe in charge. Joe's brothers had to come to him for food. Joe forgave them. This was part of God's rescue plan. And that's a part of God's story.
But then the story just forgets about Joseph and jump cuts to Judah, Joseph's older brother, and this story of his daughter-in-law, Tamar. So Tamar marries Judah's firstborn son, whose name was, that was actually his name, It turns out he was a jerk, described as evil, and God kills him. So with Tamar now a widow, it was customary for the brother-in-law to marry the widow of his brother, if he was able. So Judah's second son, Onan, marries Tamar. Turns out Onan was also very selfish, and God kills him too. So Judah only has one more son left, Shelah. But Judah has now become very superstitious. And he doesn't want his son to marry Tamar, so he just leaves her a widow, all the while promising that one day, when his son grows older, she will be wed to him. But the years go by, and Tamar sees that this is not going to happen. So she ended up taking matters into her own hands. She disguised herself as a prostitute and went to the town where Judah was working. Now, Judah's wife had passed away, and it had been a few months, so you can imagine he was open to paying for a prostitute.
When she was giving birth, that the one put out his hand, and the midwife took a scarlet thread and bound it on his hand, saying, "This one came out first." Then it happened as he drew back his hand that his brother came out unexpectedly, and she said, "How did you break through? This breach be upon you." Therefore his name was called Perez. Afterward, his brother came out who had the scarlet thread on his hand, and his name was called Zerah. May the Lord bless the reading of his holy word.
Judah probably died while they were there. Hezron had Ram, and Hezrah probably also died. And Ram fathered Amminadab, who fathered Nahshon and Elisheba.
The one who brought his offering on the first day was Nahshon, son of Amminadab of the tribe of Judah. Nahshon was a godly leader, and Elisheba must have been a godly woman.
The Bible tells us that Aaron married the daughter of Amminadab. Her name was Elisheba. So we know that she was alive at the time of the Exodus, which means counting back, we can see that the generations before her were living through the slavery of the Hebrew people in Egypt.
Here's today's biggest losers of the Bible.
Two major instances of idolatry in the Bible are directly connected with ancient Egypt. In the case of the golden calf incident during the days of Moses and Aaron, Israel had just escaped oppression in Egypt and had been traveling to the Promised Land, facing opposition and physical warfare on their way. They made a pit stop at Mount Sinai, where Moses left them to go and receive instruction from God.
The pharaoh of the time, possibly Ramses II, who ruled from 1290 to 1223 BCE, decides that the Jewish slaves have become too numerous and mighty and makes a decree to reduce their population. He orders that every Jewish newborn male be immediately killed and cast into the river. David is a new mother and decides to hide her newborn son to prevent his murder. But after 3 months, she can no longer hide him quietly. She chooses to risk everything and send her infant down the river. As baby Moses floats down the river in his mother's homemade ark, the baby is finally discovered by none other than Pharaoh's daughter, who takes pity on the child.
This is a man who doesn't fit in anywhere. He was born a Hebrew, but he was raised in the palace of Egypt. He didn't fit in with the Hebrews because he was raised in the house of Pharaoh. And he really didn't fit in Egypt because he had Hebrew blood coursing through his veins. At the age of 40, Moses kills an Egyptian slave driver as he oppresses a Hebrew slave, causing Moses to flee into exile into the remote wilderness of Sinai Peninsula.
Who knows? Maybe Moses isn't coming back. If he doesn't come back, what will we do?
Let's ask Aaron to let us make a statue to worship.
Yes, we want a God we can see.
Feeling lost without their leader, the people forget God's commandments and their promise to worship only God. They bring their jewelry to Aaron, who melts it and makes a golden statue of a calf. Joshua.
Listen, Moses, it sounds like war in our camp.
No, I hear singing, don't you? Moses can't believe what he sees.
How dare you cheat God! You promised to worship only God, and already you're worshiping the statue of a calf.
Let's get into it.
These are the ancient Israelites. Their leader is Joshua, a brilliant military strategist poised to bring the Israelites into the promised land, the land of Canaan. To fulfill this mission, Joshua and his army fight some of the most brutal battles described in the Bible. A campaign filled with blood and slaughter.
Joshua!
Are you ready? We'll search the whole city.
Just find me a way in. We must take Jericho. It's all that stands between us and the Promised Land.
I live on the edge of society. Literally. My house is built into the outermost wall of the city. Jericho's red light district. I guess we'll be the first to go if we ever get attacked. A huge Israelite army had just set up camp across the Jordan River a few days ago, and all of Jericho was talking about them. We had heard about their God, Yahweh, who rained down fire from heaven.
Queen Jezebel was a Phoenician, and she built temples of idolatry and executed almost every prophet of God. Jezebel was bent on converting the Jews into a nation of Baal worshippers. But a fearless prophet named Elijah stepped onto the scene. One of Jewish history's most legendary prophets.
Their orders were to kill him on sight. Ahab,
Are you looking for me?
Are you the one that has been troubling Israel with this famine?
You are the one that is troubling Israel with your idols. Let us have a contest between Jehovah and Baal. Bring your 850 prophets and meet me at Mount Carmel. We will put wood on our altars and we will lay the sacrifice on the wood, but we will put no fire under it. You will pray to your Baal, and I will pray to Jehovah. The God that answers by sending fire on the sacrifice will be the true God, and we will all worship him only. Since you have me outnumbered, you can go first. Behold, the God of Abraham and Isaac has answered by fire.
What kind of God is this that has no image and yet does this?
Kill them, all 850.
But we didn't know.
We had heard about their God, Yahweh, who rained down fire from heaven, and I had 2 of their spies right on my doorstep looking for a place to hide. None of our gods or idols had ever done anything for me. But maybe their Yahweh could.
So, that is all I have for you guys today. Do not forget to like, share, subscribe. Let me know what you think in the comments. I can't wait to see where it takes us next time. Bye, guys.